Good morning, children. Let's continue the lesson Lost Spring Stories of a Stolen Childhood by Anish Young. So, first, some questions. First question is, what does Sahib scrounge for in the garbage dumps? So, answer is Sahib searches for, scrounges for gold in the garbage dumps. Here gold symbolizes some precious things, some costly things, some beautiful things which Sahib wanted but he didn't have. Question number 2. Why did Sahib's parents shift from Dhaka to Delhi? Sahib's parents shifted from Dhaka to Delhi because their homes, fields, all were destroyed, washed away by the storms. Now question number 3. What did one of the boys give reason for his not wearing slippers? One of the boys gave reason that his slippers were on the shelf and his mother didn't bring them down as he himself is small, so he couldn't reach there. It was beyond his reach, so he couldn't wear slippers. Now come to the text. I remember a story a man from Udupi once told me. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. Here the narrator remembers one story. This is the story of Udupi. Udupi is a town in Karnataka. One young man had told this story to the narrator. The young man told the narrator that when he was a child, he used to visit a temple while going to his school. He stopped there for some time and prayed to God always for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited his town and the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. In the backyard, where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. 30 years, after 30 years, once again, the writer visited the same town. The writer visited the temple also. But now, the situation was changed. That very temple had turned in a place where hardly any person lived. It had changed into desolation, in the state of complete destruction, complete loneliness. No one was there. But in the backyard of the temple, the priest used to live, and some chairs were there, plastic chairs of red and white colored. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer. That very time I saw a boy in his school uniform who was in his shoes and socks also, came and threw his school bag on the folding bed. Seeing the boy in his school uniform, seeing the boy in his shoes and socks, I remembered the boy 30 years before who used to pray to God for his shoes. And when he got shoes anyway, then the boy made the prayer, "Oh God, please help me so that I can never lose the shoes." And now here, his prayer was granted. The goddess had granted his prayer. Young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes. But many others, like the rag pickers in my neighborhood, remain shoeless. So now the question arises, how his prayer was granted? His prayer was granted means here, all the boys like him, all the boys whose status was like him, whose level was like him, their prayers were granted. Means now they were able to put on shoes. But still the condition of the rag pickers, condition of the children who were rag pickers, they were without shoes. Still they didn't have shoes. My acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, 8 miles away from it. My acquaintance. Children, there is one word, acquaint, and from acquaint, the word acquaintance has come. Acquaintance means friend also, a person whom you know, and acquaintance means familiarity, introduction. Here, acquaintance means familiarity, introduction. The writer says that due to her familiarity with these children, with the rag pickers, once she visited Simapuri, the colony where these rag pickers used to live. This Simapuri is situated on the border of Delhi. A place on the periphery of Delhi, 8 miles away from it. Although Simapuri is a part of Delhi, but it was miles away from Delhi. It means the people of Simapuri were deprived of all the facilities, all the privileges which the people of Delhi are getting. So being the inhabitants of Delhi, they were deprived of all those facilities which the dwellers of Delhi are getting. Those who live here are squatters who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. What kind of people lived in Simapuri? In Simapuri, those people lived who had come from Dhaka, Bangladesh in 1971. Means they all were refugees. They had shifted from Dhaka to Delhi in 1971. Squat means to occupy illegally, to dwell illegally, to live illegally. So it was not their land, but they had occupied it anyway. Sahib's family is among them. Sahib's family was also one of the squatters. Simapuri was then a wilderness. Then means when? When these people had shifted there. That time Simapuri was only wilderness. Wilderness means a place which was empty, which was neglected, rejected, abandoned. So that time Simapuri was uninhabited place. No one lived there. It still is, but it is no longer empty. Still it is neglected place, rejected place, where the government doesn't pay any attention. But it is not empty now. Now it is inhabited by the squatters, by the people who have shifted from Dhaka. In structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage, drainage or running water, live 10,000 rag pickers. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity, without permits, but with ration cards that get their names on voter lists and enable them to buy grain. The people who lived in Simapuri, their huts were made up of mud. They had no facility of drain system. They had no facility of running water. But still, they lived there without any identity. They had no recognition, no identity. Nobody knew them. But still, they lived there. And they were satisfied. They were happy. They had no permit. Permit means a card which gives permission to get something. But they had ration cards. So their names were in voter list and they could get grain. Food is more important for survival than an identity. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grain. See a group of women in tattered saris when I asked them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers. The narrator asked some ladies of Simapuri that why did you leave your beautiful land, beautiful home, beautiful green fields? Why did you shift here? Then the ladies who were wearing tattered saris, torn saris, ragged sari, told that at least here we have shelter, we have roof over our head, we can feed our children. In the night, our children can have sound sleep without any pain, any ache in the stomach. But there, the fields didn't give us grain. So, we have shifted here, the ladies too. Means their fields were destroyed there by the natural calamity, by the storm. Wherever they find food, they pitch their tents that become transit homes. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. And survival in Simapuri means rag picking. Wherever they got food, in that place they put up their tent. And children who are born in that tent, who are grown up in their tent, they had become accustomed to living such kind of life, to living in such a place. So they had also no complaint. They had become the partner of their parents. They also carried the same job, same profession, which was carried by their parents. Means they also did rag picking. Through the years, it has acquired the proportion of a fine art. They had no complaint. They had no complaint against their job of rag picking. In fact, it had become their art of living. In fact, it had become the skill. Garbage to them is gold. It is their daily bed, a roof over their heads, even if it is a leaking roof. Garbage was everything to them. Garbage was the source of income for them. Garbage was a source of livelihood for them. It was due to garbage. It was due to rag picking that they had roofs over their head. Means they had shelter. They could get food. They could get clothing. So, garbage was the means of survival for them. They were surviving only due to garbage, due to rag picking. In Simapuri, if anyone had to live, then he had to adopt the profession rag picking. There, they had no other option. But for a child, it is even more. To the elderly persons, to the grown-ups, garbage was gold. But for the children, it was not merely gold. It was more than this. I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note, Sahib says, his eyes lighting up. Sahib told the narrator, "Ma'am, you know, sometimes in the garbage, I find a rupee. Sometimes even a 10 rupee note." And saying this, his eyes started shining. His eyes became bright, hoping for getting more from the garbage. When you can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging for. There is hope of finding more. The narrator here says that it's natural, that if the children are getting some money from the garbage, some rupees from the garbage, some precious things from the garbage, then why they should stop rag picking? Then they must be tempted for rag picking. It seems that for children, garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parents. So to the parents, garbage had different meaning. And to the children, it had some another meaning. To the children, garbage meant not only gold, but all the precious, many kinds of precious things, beautiful things. Maybe it was bag, maybe sometimes it was shoe, slipper. So they try to find rupees, 1 rupee, 10 rupees. They hoped that sometimes they could get silver coin also from garbage. For the children, it is wrapped in wonder. For the children, garbage was wrapped in wonder. Means for the children, garbage was full of wonderful things, surprising things. It was just like a mystery for them. They thought that they could get anything from the garbage if they would search properly. For the elders, it is a means of survival. But for the to the elders, garbage was the source of survival. It was a way of their life. It was the art of their life. They thought that whatever they had, it was only because of garbage. It was a source of their livelihood. One winter morning, I see Sahib standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood club, watching 2 young men dressed in white playing tennis. One morning, the narrator saw Sahib standing near the gate of a club. The gate was fenced. Fenced gate means the gate which had boundary around it. And he was watching 2 young men playing tennis in the club. And the young men were wearing white dress. I like the game, he hums, content to watch it standing behind the fence. I go inside when no one is around. He admits the gatekeeper lets me use the swing. He told the narrator that I like this game very much, I like tennis very much. And it seemed that he was contented, he was satisfied. Only by watching the game. He was not playing, but only by watching he was satisfied. He told the narrator that if no one is there, then sometimes I go inside, I use the swing, and the gatekeeper doesn't scold me. He lets me go. He allows me to go. Sahib too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and shorts. Someone gave them to me, he says in the manner of an explanation. The fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them doesn't bother him. Sahib was also wearing tennis shoes, but his tennis shoes were not matching with his shorts and shirt. His shirts were discolored. The color of his shirt had faded. In fact, these shoes were given to Sahib by a rich boy. There was a hole in one of the shoes. So, the rich boy had discarded it. But for Sahib, it was everything. Sahib didn't bother that there was hole in one of the shoes. He was happy to get the shoe. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true. But the game he is watching so intently is out of his reach. For the person who is barefoot, who has never slippers and shoes in his life, if he has got the shoes even with hole, it doesn't matter. It is like his dream has come true. So Sahib was happy. It seemed as if his long cherished dream has come true. But what about playing tennis? He had got shoes anyway. But what about playing tennis? It was impossible. He couldn't play. It was beyond his reach. This morning, Sahib is on his way to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. I now walk in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals. One morning, the narrator saw Sahib carrying a canister in his hand. Sahib told that he had got a job in a tea stall. He pointed towards the tea stall which was down the road. Sahib also told that he would be paid 800 rupees per month and food will be free. I asked, does he like the job? His face, I see, has lost the carefree look. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. The bag was his. The canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. Sahib is no longer his own master. Then the narrator asked him that did he like the job? Although Sahib didn't tell anything, but the narrator read his face. The narrator felt that the carefree boy had some tensions, some anxieties over his face. Means he was not so happy because earlier he had his own job. He was himself the master of job. When he wanted to pick the rags, he did, otherwise he did not. But now the owner of the tea stall is his master. He will have to work under his guidance, under his control. Moreover, earlier he used to carry the plastic bag which was not so heavy. But now he had to carry a steel canister which was heavier. So now some word meaning. That's all. Thanks.